I'd like to convene the meeting of the Public Services Subcommittee. Committee members Gravel, Matsoulis, Rosignol, and Sassler are all present, along with the entire City Council. On the agenda this evening is the subject of the first 90 days in office of our new Public Services Director, Robert Labossiere, and any questions pertaining to public services and snow removal within the city of Peabody. And I'd like to invite Mr. Labossiere up to the podium to speak, and then I'll open it up to the council.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Bob Labossiere, Director of Public Services. I want to thank the subcommittee for having me here tonight. I understand you would like to discuss snow removal this year. I can report to you that we've met already. Myself, the new facilities director, Kev Kelly, who's the assistant director, we've all met and taken a ride around the city, looked at all the elementary schools, the middle school, the high school. Kev has brought me up to speed about how snow and ice has been taken care of in the past. He is very detailed and organized with how he keeps records and how he takes care of the city with snow and ice. He has impressed me very, very much with how he handles snow and ice. I feel very comfortable at where we are at this point. I understand it's a big issue in the city and that a lot of people have some concerns. So I'd be here tonight to ask any questions you may have of me about how you'd like to see snow and ice handled this year, if you have any questions.
Councilor Rosignol.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Through you, first, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
The one question I have is do you have captains for each ward?
Each ward has a supervisor, yes.
Okay.
We've already had a meeting with each supervisor. They've had a list of last year's contractors they worked with. They've made calls to all those contractors. We've had them come in, their vehicles have been inspected, their paperwork has been put in. We're meeting again tomorrow with all the new paperwork that's come in to make sure that and set up all the routes to make sure that they have people to cover each and every route.
Will the council be apprised of who each ward captain is, so that if one of us fields a question or a concern, we can then, instead of directing our attention to you and then you having to find so-and-so and then them having to find whoever's actually doing the plowing, we have a little bit more of a direct path so we can say, hey, on such and such a street there was an issue, can you just take a peek and see what you find?
Sure, we can give you all the information you want. I think we've talked today, and we'll talk again tomorrow after this meeting, but I think we'd like those calls that come in to Kevin, and then Kevin will disperse those just so that he has a plan, and he doesn't want to be telling one supervisor something and having another councilman calling him, telling him to do something else. We want to try to stay on the same page. So I think that would probably work better if those calls came into Kevin. But we'll give you a list of all the wards, all the supervisors, all the contractors, whatever information you want.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate that. Through the chair, just one other point for me, at least. I know one issue that ends up happening, being a former school committee member, is the school department will shovel to X, the city will shovel to Y, and next thing you know, there's a snowbank the size of Wisconsin where the two shall not meet. So I just want to make sure that there's going to be a strong coordinated effort with regards to the school properties, that everybody understands, A, the timing that needs to happen, and B, that there is going to be a little bit of an overlap in a specific spot or an area so that nothing is missed versus, I'm sorry, I'm only going to here, and I'm sorry, I'm only going to here.
Sure. So also tonight is Jim's here, the new facilities director. We've all been speaking quite a bit. Jim and I are both new, so we're coming in with fresh eyes. We've been meeting a lot and talking about this. We're going to sit down. Jim has already sat down with us. We talked about it. He's going to sit down with his maintenance team and go over what they're going to do, what we're going to do, and we're going to coordinate all that together. And then we're going to sit down with the school department itself and explain that to the superintendent as well.
And then lastly, again, just putting my school committee member hat on for a split second. I know one of the issues that has happened in the past is the high school, because it's a hill, it's on a hill, and it starts at the crack of dawn. That's not necessarily been the first priority when it really needed to be. So just to put a bug in your ear, making sure that the high school and the hill that is associated on both sides is really a priority on school days when there is school going to be in session.
Right, yeah, Kevin's already explained that to me. The high school itself has its own crew that's going to be at the school itself during snow events. And then in the morning, they're going to bring in people early before school starts. They're going to hit all the schools ahead of time. So he's already got that plan all set out. He's very, very good at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on the committee, but thank you for allowing my comments. Through you to Mr. Labossiere, there is a template for what Councilor Rosignol was describing. About 3 years ago, I think we got a book which contained all that information. Kevin will most definitely, he'll definitely have that. And
he's already given me all that.
Yeah, so that we're really, I think, just looking for an update. It was before Tom was on the council, so we don't get it annually, so that's probably why Councilor Rosignol doesn't have a copy. But it is extremely useful to a counselor to have that information because sometimes we get feedback about it's in an area or if I don't have a place to go refer to what area number that is, I don't. Okay. So it kind of helps me break the code.
We have provide maps. And,
it's got maps, it's got routes, it's color coded, it's very well organized documents. So if we could just get that would be terrific. And it also has in it some of the priority information, which I think Councilor Rosignol alluded to. That main thoroughfares are first and hills are second.
Correct.
And we're always going to get these calls from people that live on dead-end streets that unfortunately they're last. But some of this I now know by heart, but we have some newer councilors that might not have that information. That it's extremely useful. So communication is king. I think you know that during these events. I think in my time on the council, it's only gotten better in terms of how these storm events have been managed. So I think you've got a great, you're coming in with a very strong crew there.
Yeah, it's a good group of guys,
so looking forward to a smooth running operation this winter. Thank you, Mr.
I'm hoping for it. Thank you.
And the only other thing I get kind of a unique one for my ward is the downtown. There's a lot of like around municipal lots and so forth. It's the one area in the city where the property owners by ordinance are required to shovel their sidewalks, but it's very hard for us to do that, enforce that if we're not taking care of the sidewalks around the municipal lots and so forth. So we kind of need to lead by example there. So if we could make sure that that's a priority for us, it has the benefit of kind of accelerating how the private property owners or business owners take care of the sidewalks in front of their property in the downtown. So that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Gravel.
You're at least still smiling after 90 days.
I am.
Oh, that's a good thing.
I've been liking my first 120 days now.
Yeah. So hopefully after the winter, you'll still be smiling. I just had a couple of issues. One is, are we still planning on, in the downtown area, bringing in the small bobcats and such to get the snow off the corners? Because
There's going to be a contractor just set up for the downtown area.
And will we still get the calls that we would normally get telling us on the dispatch when they're going out and updating us during the day as to the progress that they made, because that used to be pretty helpful too, because if you got a resident calling, you could say, look, I know they've got 24 plows out and they're already got the sanders out, and it's just a matter of time. You're just going to have to hold on.
So that hasn't been brought to my attention yet, but so calls went out to all the counselors every time we went out? If that's what you'd like, we can absolutely do that.
I just thought it was kind of helpful to know that's what was happening, so that, because you're going to get the call no matter what, that people are...
Sure.
At least we can give them some update. And the last thing was, as it pertains to, well, actually, it's similar to that. We also get calls, or I did, several, about the this is going to sound crazy, but you get this call that one group of plows might be doing nothing but a certain area over and over and over again, and there's really no need for it because it's already been plowed, but they're running the street multiple times. And I know it sounds crazy, but when you get a call when we get a call like that, will there be somebody that we can just say, hey, we just got this crazy call about, they have 4 plows on one street and they've now plowed it down to bare pavement, and they continue to run the street?
Yeah, I mean, I do get that in my past positions where the people think that the plow's gone down the street too many times. A lot of that is the plow's trying to push back. So you want to get the snow pushed back as far as you can so that the next storm, it's not piling up and creating a narrower road. But we'll have that talk with all of our plow operators before we go out.
Yeah, because I really don't need to see any more videotapes of, video messages of plows running the street. It's kind of interesting to me, but, you've seen one, you've seen them all. So.
Right. No, they want to get out of there. They would rather move the plows to another area and get out, go home for the night than having the plows running.
It may be a snowless winter here anyway, so it might
I'm
not
hoping.
matter, so.
I'm hoping.
Council Sasslaw.
Thank you. Welcome. Good to see you, Bob.
Thank you.
Just a couple of follow-up questions. Regarding the phone calls, what also was helpful too, not only did they tell us when they would go out and plow, but which actually was very helpful, was when they sand and salted. That was a big one. So, because we would get calls from residents, I'm sliding on so-and-so, and if I said, well, I appreciate that, but I know, at 8, they call me at 9 o'clock, or at 8:15, I know our sanders went out and they sanded. And really, I never knew this, I never really believed it, but it is amazing, quite frankly, the difference in conditions you can get from downtown Peabody to West Peabody. It
yeah.
could be an 8 to 10 degree difference, and I'm just gonna, I'm sure Kevin's told you about that, but it's amazing sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Also, I assume you're aware of the placards that we started last year on the plows. We're going to be continuing with that.
We have those in the office. Yep.
That's great.
They're metal, magnetic placards. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that. And where are we? I know this became an issue last year. I believe we had 2 sidewalk plows, and one of them broke down at the end of the season. Are we fully functioning with 2 sidewalk plows at this time?
We have both sidewalk plows. Yeah.
Okay.
From my understanding, yeah. Which, considering we have 8 elementary schools, it takes a long time to get the 2 sidewalk tractors out around the schools.
I don't know the miles, but I think Beverly Griffin Dunn can quote unquote how many miles of sidewalks we have in the city, and that's one of the challenges I think that we face. And just to say it publicly, it's fair to say that as much as we want to get that done, if we get a 12 to 14-inch storm, we might have school the next day, and there might be a possibility that some of the sidewalks might not be clear. But once we get the main roadways, the sidewalk, and the side roads, then we kind of go to the sidewalks. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. Yeah.
Okay.
But to get school open, we got to make sure all the emergency access is open and available, and the crosswalks at the school, right in front of the school, all that will be taken care of before we get school open.
Sure.
But moving out from the school, it may take a little longer.
Right, and I would just ask the public to have some patience with that. And just taking a step back with the motion that Council Turco put on the floor, I just want to kind of bring it back to a 10,000-foot view. I know it's been a challenge, and the mayor has discussed it. Staffing. How are you doing as far as staffing? Are you at 100% capacity in general? up there? Not plowing, I'm just talking about in general. How are you doing with staffing these days?
We're doing pretty well. We've got, I think it is 2 positions left that we're advertising right now.
Okay, very good. Glad to hear that. And as far as staffing and private and public contractor, did you get enough private people who signed up to do plowing? Or you have plenty?
They keep coming in every day, but yeah, we look pretty good right now. Yeah, we're at about, I believe we're at the same staffing as we were last year right now.
Okay, I'll pray for a dry, warm winter.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and some workman comp employees are back to work too, so that's helped us. They've come back. We've had 3 people come back in the last 2 weeks, so that's really helped.
That's good news. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not sure if I should. Councilor Matsoulis, did you have your hand up? You did. Councilor Matsoulis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Labassiere, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
You're a pretty fortunate fellow because you have a great crew behind you.
They've been very good,
You,
yeah.
you have people that really know what they're doing. They're professionals. Being semi-retired, I'm in my ward all the time, so whenever it snows, I'm right out in the neighborhood, asking people how the plow is doing, how the work. And for the past 2 or 3 years, I'll tell you, the compliments just keep coming in. You do a great job. I've only had one issue in the past 2 years, and I don't really understand why I always get called. It's the cul-de-sacs. I got 3 or 4 cul-de-sacs in my ward, and it seems like whenever we have snow, and it's not that you did a bad job, it's just where you put the snow,
Right.
So I'm only mentioning that to you because there's only, like I said, 3 cul-de-sacs. If whenever you have, whoever you have in the area, would you just kind of have them watch where they put the snow or ask the residents where they want it?
Sure.
Because that's usually what happens. I'll give you a call and you'll come down and you'll put that snow where the residents are asking me for it to go, where it should go, And my other question was, I think Joel asked you that. You have enough contractors this year?
We will be meeting tomorrow to go over all the contracts that have come in, but I believe last I had heard, we're at the same staffing we were last year at this time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So just out of curiosity, I don't know how you, where you designate the individuals are going to go, but do you usually try to put the people who were in my Ward 3, the contractors, do you usually try to put them back in the same ward?
The same
or
ones, yes.
You try to have the same contractor that are familiar with the
Right.
the area.
I know
That's good.
we're going to change up some of the locations of our own crew this year.
Right.
Kevin was telling me, like, we had a lot of the water crew guys in one spot, and just in case we have a water main break, we don't want to take everybody out of that
Right.
one area. So we're trying to divide them up through the
Right.
city so that if we have something that comes up during the snowstorm, it doesn't affect one ward.
Okay, good. Well, I look forward to working with you this
Thank
year.
you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Councilor Charest.
Thank you, Councilor. And again, the last couple of councilors talked about staffing. I know last year there was an issue. I'm assuming the contractors that bailed out as the season started, you are not going to be using this year? Did you have a list of, I know at one point there was a couple contractors, if it was during the season or just in the beginning of the season, private contractors.
From last year?
From last year that bailed out. I certainly hope you look at that list and make sure they're not on the list again, because if they left us in a snowbank once, they'll probably do it again. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you can pay attention to that, I appreciate. And one of the other things that, and I know it's in that list, but we do get calls, and as my time on the school committee, as Tom pointed out, when they pile the snowbanks, it's not at a bus stop.
Right.
You know, and unfortunately, it seems to happen a lot. And I know it's not our guys, because our guys are great. It is the contractors. Do we still have a size limit or minimum of a vehicle that we contract out with?
We have a minimum size, yes, and a minimum width on a plow, but,
And the weight of the vehicle itself, to know,
right, but
you don't want to
we'll-
see Jeep out there pushing for the Lowell Street, right?
Right. But we'll take smaller pickup trucks and put them in areas where that it'll be good for them, short, dead-end streets, what it is. But we're looking for some bigger equipment. I know that's been a priority this year, to look for some bigger equipment to help with some of the wider roads, getting that heavy snowpack back.
Yeah. And the other thing was, we talked about earlier with the phone calls that went out, if it was about the salt and sanding or just the plowing itself. It does help as a ward councilor, because when I see certain streets that the cars are on still, because they're figuring the city is all done coming through, they start parking on the street.
Right.
That I've gone out and said, hey, listen, they're going to be coming through tomorrow night with more sand, more salt, or even trucks to push it closer to the curb. Now they have larger trucks available. So that's always helpful for a ward councilor.
Do you want them as phone calls, or would you rather them as text messages, or
To me,
I mean, do you guys really want us calling you
text.
all the time?
Right, when I'm an old-fashioned guy. When I say call, I'm meaning texts and emails. I don't have the verbs down correctly when I'm talking about. Yeah, text is good. I'm up to speed at least for that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Because the number of times they go out, you may be cursing yourself.
Yeah, no. And again, with me, it's always, if you want to call me, I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
I'm up at 4, so you can do it at that time. Thank you.
You got no problem.
Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Labossiere, you've been great. You've been very responsive and proactive on a lot of issues, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming and joining us this evening. I just have one question for you. Have
Sure.
you ever had experience in other cities, or are you aware of utilizing department heads? I mean, they're already on salary, using department heads to oversee and hold mostly the the contractors, the smaller vehicles accountable. Have you ever, I'm aware of it in other cities, and it seems to work pretty well. I was wondering if you had any experience, like, say, the Parks and Rec director and the golf course director, especially the golf course director. He's on salary year-round. To utilize folks like that to assist you with an extra set of eyes in the community and have an area so that you can contact, or they can monitor the area and hold those contractors accountable?
We have area supervisors who are salaried. They're not they're not directors of departments, but I'm not sure asking directors to come in during snow events, considering that's not part of their job description, I'm not sure that will be well received by them. If it was part of their job description, I'm sure it would, it's a different story. But we do have salaried employees from the Parks Department, from different areas. I know from the Facilities Department, Dave Gamache, he's one of the area supervisors. So we do utilize salaried employees. One of our engineers is a area supervisor. So we do use salaried employees for those positions.
Okay, thank you. It's just, I think they started it in, maybe in Boston, when we had the 10 feet of snow. And,
Sure.
And then they continued to do it because it worked out really well.
Sure.
And with salaried employees, especially department heads, there's usually a line in there that says other duties as assigned. So if we were to need them, I know that you wouldn't be initiating that, but it
Right.
might be something that we could discuss with the mayor
Sure.
in the future. So I just didn't know if you had any experience with that. So
I
it's
haven't
just
in
an
the
idea.
past. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Gould.
Thank you. Excuse me, Bob. The infamous phone calls that were made in the morning were done by Mr. Arthur Flanagan.
Oh, right, yes.
He
Yep.
and just so you can go back and say, Arthur, they're looking for you to call
Okay.
again. So just so you'll have some reference. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Mr. Labossiere, while I have you up here, right, when I had first gotten on the council in 2015, and it's similar to what Councilor McGinn had mentioned regarding this manual that came out, which I haven't gotten in 3 years, so that must have been probably the winter of 2014. But if we could get that manual, and I won't ask for a motion to do that, I'll trust that you can
absolutely,
do that.
yeah.
And my second question related to that is, when I did get on, we did get the infamous list. And there's always that question by residents as whether this list really exists. When they call for a sidewalk repair or a storm drain to be cleaned out, or some request of public services. So we did actually verify that there is actually a list.
Yep.
And at the time, I think it was Councilor Gould had suggested that maybe we try to work on some of the issues from 2010, I believe, at the time you mentioned, Councilor Gould. But could we get an updated version of that list?
Yeah, sure,
as
absolutely.
it exists in the database so that councils could see which of their residents in specific wards have been waiting years for, whatever. Maybe we could try to address some of those to people that have become frustrated and no longer call and ask. Other than that, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for the first, I think you've done a great job for the first 120 days.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And I am going to, since we have Mr. Heffy here, if anybody has a brief question for Mr. Heffy regarding, is it Heffy? Heffy? Regarding snow removal around the school areas, if any ward council would like to ask, I'd like to just ask Mr. Heffy to come to the podium.
Good evening, councilors. Jim Hafey, Facilities Director. You said you had a specific question?
I'll open it up to the council for any questions regarding snow removal in the school areas, if anybody has a question. So with that, no council has a question, so I'll just say, I think the majority of our phone calls as ward councilors do come from school-related issues because parents, we have a lot of walkable schools. We have a lot of neighborhood schools in our areas. I'll speak for myself with St. Anne's. And parents up and down Lynn Street expect that their child will be able to walk to school safely. And I know there's a fine line of where your responsibility ends and DPS's begins. But I think also in the same vein as we're asking for contact information, I'd also like to be able to contact somebody directly if there's a school-related issue. And at times we reach out to school committee members, we reach out to principals, but I would like to know who is in charge of that specific school or monitoring the sidewalk situation if we're going to open school that day. And I've had a number of problems with the sidewalks in the St. Anne's area.
Understood. It's a problem sometimes, not specifically to here, but I could tell you that since I came on here not 9 days ago, we've done a lot of talk about snow removal. We've had several tours already. This morning I went around with a couple of guys, Kevin and Tony T, and talked specifically about the different problems in each of the schools, each of the elementary schools. They all have their little idiosyncrasies about storing snow, removing snow, what needs to be cleared, the paths that go out into the woods, things like that. Both of those guys have a really good handle on it. I feel comfortable working with them. They're very good at communicating things up the line, and I don't anticipate that there's going to be any real issues as far as communication goes. But if there's a list of numbers that you'd like to see and looking at the chain of command, I can certainly provide that to you.
Okay, with that, whoever is on staff for snow removal on those days would be fine. Whoever your go-to person will, if it's not yourself, I'm not sure if you'll be in during snow events or if you'll have...
I'll be in for all the snow events. We'll have Dave and Tony also working all the events too, monitoring their areas.
Okay, and with that, I just want to thank you for your first 9 days.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Sasslaw.
Just to follow up, we talk about elementary schools, but one of the things that happens is an issue I've been having is the high school, because all the kids, the way it's set up is they can walk a longer distance. And I'd like you to be aware of, as he brought up Lynn Linfield, Lowell Street. We have neighborhoods past Sioux Chang's, Proctor Circle, and Centerfield. They're supposed to walk to the high school, and it became an issue last year. So Lowell Street, Major Street, it's a pretty long walk, so if you could maybe put that one on your list, I'd appreciate it while you're here.
We will, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. Motion to adjourn?
Thank you.